How would you react if you see a widow being accused of bringing bad luck to a newly wedded couple? Are you one of those people who believe that a widow should stay clear from wedding preparations because of this? Here is the sad story of two best friends who found themselves in a dilemma that almost cost them everything. Once upon a time, there lived two best friends named Munachi and Ginika who had been best friends for a very long time. Growing up in the bustling city of Lagos, they had always been inseparable and loved themselves so dearly. Munachi was a talented fashion designer known across the city for her elegant and creative styles, whilst Ginika worked in a corporate firm. Life had taken them through many highs and lows, but their friendship remained strong, even after Munachi faced a heartbreaking tragedy that left her broken for a very long time. The death of her husband Kelechi, who died in a tragic accident 2 years ago. Despite the sorrow that followed, Munachi had been resilient. She threw herself into her work, building a name for herself in the fashion world. Ginika had been there for her every step of the way, supporting her during her darkest moments. Now, it was Ginika's turn to celebrate. She had found love and was preparing for her own wedding. Naturally, she turned to Munachi to design her wedding dress, but something soon changed. Despite their years of friendship, a deep-rooted superstition began to cloud Ginika's judgment. As Ginika's wedding plans advanced, an old aunt of hers visited, bringing along a host of unsettling beliefs. The woman warned Ginika that having a widow sew her wedding dress could bring bad luck to her marriage. Initially, Ginika laughed off the idea, but the more her aunt whispered about curses and misfortune, the more the thoughts began to trouble her mind. She loved Munachi dearly, but a seed of doubt had been planted, and soon it began to grow, overshadowing the trust she had in her friend. Ginika hesitated in telling Munachi her decision. She could already hear the hurt in Munachi's voice if she were to tell her that another designer would be sewing her wedding dress. For days, she battled with herself, weighing her friendship against the irrational fear that now resided within her. The thought of starting her new life with bad luck lingering over her wedding terrified her greatly. Eventually, the fear won, and Ginika knew that she had to let her friend in on her decision. Ginika sat across from Munachi in her fashion studio, struggling to find the words to break the sad news to her. Munachi was brimming with excitement, already showing Ginika sketches of the wedding dress designs she had in mind. But Ginika's mind was elsewhere. The guilt weighed on her heavily as she avoided eye contact. Munachi, she started hesitantly. "I've been thinking about the wedding dress." Munachi smiled brightly, completely unaware of what was coming next. "Yes, I've already come up with some beautiful ideas for you. You're going to look stunning." Ginika bit her lip and looked down at her glass of wine. "I've decided to go with another designer," she blurted out. Munachi's face fell instantly, the smile fading as confusion settled in. "What? Why?" she asked softly, her voice laced with disbelief. Ginika stumbled over her words, unsure of how to explain without hurting her dear friend. "It's just, someone suggested that maybe it's not the best idea. You know, with everything that's happened." The silence that followed was deafening. Munachi's heart sank. She had poured all her energy into her work, using it as a distraction from her grief. Being asked to design Ginika's wedding dress had been a ray of hope, something to look forward to amidst the sadness. But now, her best friend was rejecting her. The reason stung even more. Was she now seen as a bad woman because she was a widow? The pain of losing her husband was still fresh, and now she was being pushed away for something beyond her control. She nodded, trying to hide her hurt. "I understand," she whispered, though she didn't. Ginika reached for her hand. "I'm so sorry, Munachi. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just that people talk. And you know how these superstitions can get into your head. Munachi forced a smile, but inside, she felt a deep wound open, one that might never fully heal. Ginika's decision created a rift between them, and neither of them realized how far-reaching the consequences would be. With the wedding approaching fast, Ginika pushed aside her feelings of guilt and focused on the preparations. She found another designer, someone she barely knew, to create her dress. The new designer seemed competent enough, but from the moment Ginika made the switch, odd things began to happen. First, there were delays with the fabric orders. Then, the venue for the wedding reception suddenly had to close down due to unforeseen repairs. Ginika couldn't help but feel like things were spiraling out of control. The more obstacles she encountered, the more she began to wonder if she had made the wrong choice by distancing herself from Munachi. Every small misfortune felt like an omen, and her mind kept drifting back to her auntie's warnings. Was there really a curse tied to her decision? Doubt and fear consumed her as her wedding day drew nearer. The final straw came when, a week before the wedding, the dress wasn't ready. The new designer had fallen ill, and there was no telling when she would recover enough to finish the gown. Panicking, Ginika's frustration turned to anger, and her thoughts spiraled. Could it be that Munachi was behind all of this? The idea seemed preposterous at first, but the more she dwelled on it, the more she convinced herself that Munachi, hurt by the rejection, was somehow causing these problems. Ginika avoided Munachi during this time, refusing to answer her calls or see her. When they eventually met, Ginika couldn't hold back any longer. "You're behind this, aren't you?" she accused Munachi, her voice trembling with rage and fear. Munachi stood in shock, taken aback by the accusation. "What are you talking about?" she asked, hurt and confused. "All these things happening. Everything is going wrong. It has to be you, Munachi. You're angry because I didn't let you sew my dress." Munachi could hardly believe what she was hearing. The friend she had loved and supported for years was accusing her of sabotaging her wedding. "Ginika, how could you say that? I would never wish harm on you or your wedding," she cried, her voice shaking with emotion. But Ginika's mind was already made up. She stormed out, leaving Munachi standing there heartbroken. Their friendship, which had withstood so many trials, seemed to be crumbling right before their eyes. Ginika's accusations left Munachi extremely sad. In her grief and hurt, she considered reaching out to Ginika again, but the rejection stung too deeply. Meanwhile, Ginika's wedding day loomed closer, and the string of bad luck continued to grow, and Ginika was convinced that Munachi was behind it all. As the wedding day drew nearer, Ginika's troubles only escalated. The final blow came when the wedding rings went missing. Ginika had kept them in a safe place, but when she went to retrieve them for a final fitting, they were gone. Panicking, she turned her entire house upside down in search of the rings, but they were nowhere to be found. She was convinced this was yet another consequence of Munachi's supposed anger. "This is the last straw," Ginika fumed. "Munachi must have done something to curse this wedding," she thought to herself, reeling in anger. Despite how absurd the accusation seemed, her aunt, who had planted the initial doubt in her mind, encouraged Ginika to sever all ties with Munachi, assuring her that it was the only way to save her upcoming wedding. Meanwhile, Munachi was still trying to get over the accusations, feeling lost and alone. She couldn't understand how her best friend could turn on her so easily after all the years they had spent together. Ginika had made up her mind, and Munachi saw no way to mend the damage. As Ginika's wedding day approached, her stress levels continued to rise. The new tailor, whom she had trusted, kept delaying the completion of her dress, and it was becoming evident that the gown might not be ready in time. Ginika's worst fear came through when 2 days before the wedding, she received a call from the tailor saying that the dress had been ruined by an accidental spill of dye. Ginika was devastated. She had no dress and no time to fix it. What she did not know was that this so-called accident wasn't an accident at all. The day before the wedding, Ginika sat in her room, overwhelmed by the disastrous turn of events. Her family was trying to console her, but the stress and fear had taken their toll. Just as she was contemplating calling off the wedding, there was a knock at her door. It was Munachi. Ginika was surprised to see her, but before she could speak, Munachi calmly handed her a box. "I know you didn't ask me to sew your dress, but I made you one anyway, just in case." Ginika opened the box to find a stunning wedding dress. Even more beautiful than she had imagined, Munachi had made the dress with love and care. Despite everything that happened, Ginika's heart softened for a moment. She could see how much Munachi still cared for her, but the doubt and superstition still held her captive. She accepted the dress with a forced smile, but deep down, she wasn't ready to let go of her superstitions. The morning of Ginika's wedding arrived, but it was far from the joyous day that she had imagined. From the moment she woke up, everything seemed to go so wrong. The makeup artist was late, the wedding car broke down, and the caterers were having issues with the food. As the chaos unfolded, Ginika's mind was consumed with anger and confusion. She wore the beautiful dress Munachi had made, but each problem that arose made her believe more and more that Munachi had cursed her special day. Ginika's anger festered as the minutes ticked by. She arrived at church an hour late and was told that her groom had angrily stepped out. "He waited for you for almost an hour and lost it," one of the guests said to Ginika, who had just stepped out of the bridal car, her dress trailing behind her in a flustered mess. Ginika's heart sank. The tension of the day had finally reached its peak, and now her groom, the one person she thought would be by her side no matter what, had stormed out of their wedding. She hurried into the church, her heart racing, scanning the room for any sign of him. Her family looked on in concern, and whispers filled the air as guests exchanged worried glances. Her aunt approached, pulling Ginika aside, her voice low but urgent. "You see, this is what happens when you let bad omen surround your wedding." Her aunt hissed, "I told you to stay away from that widow. Look at what's happened now. Your groom is gone." Ginika felt a surge of anger rise up inside of her. Her aunt's superstitions had been like a dark cloud over her for weeks, poisoning her mind against her best friend. But now, standing in the church she had always dreamed of being married in, she could not believe how her life was crumbling down. Without another word to her aunt, Ginika turned and hurried out of the church. She had to find her groom. Ginika found him outside, pacing angrily by the church steps. His back was turned, but the tension in his posture was unmistakable. "I'm so sorry," Ginika said softly as she approached him. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said as she watched him walk away from her without saying a word. Ginika could feel her world crumble in front of her eyes. Her mind raced at the thought of the bad luck ruining her entire wedding. The day she had dreamed of for so long was falling apart right before her eyes, and she couldn't help but feel helpless. But then, something unexpected happened. A distant cousin of hers approached her quietly, pulling her aside from the crowd. "Ginika, I overheard something earlier that you need to know," she whispered, glancing around cautiously. "It wasn't Munachi who caused these problems. I heard that your fiancé had something to do with it." Ginika's eyes widened in disbelief. "My fiancé? What do you mean?" The cousin looked around cautiously, as if making sure no one else was listening. "I overheard him talking to one of his friends at the bachelor party," she whispered. "He didn't want the wedding to happen." "Ginika, he's been having doubts." Ginika's heart raced as confusion washed over her. "Doubts? Why wouldn't he want the wedding to hold?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, filled with panic. The cousin hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the weight of what she was about to reveal. I don't know all the details, but he's been seeing someone else, someone from his past. I think he's been using all these mishaps as an excuse to delay the wedding, hoping you'd call it off yourself. Ginika felt the ground shift beneath her. The caterers, the dress, the rings, it all began to make more sense. Her fiancé's strange behavior, his detachment during the wedding planning, and now this. Her heart ached and tears welled up in her eyes as she realized she had been blaming the wrong person all along. Munachi hadn't cursed her wedding. Her own fiancé had been sabotaging it. She thought back to the times he'd been distracted, the moments he avoided certain discussions, and how distant he had been lately. It all started to fit together like a twisted puzzle. He must have been planning this for some time, hoping that she would be the one to break things off so he wouldn't have to bear the guilt. Her world was spinning, and all the misfortune that had led up to this moment felt even more cruel. Ginika had turned on her best friend, accused her of things she hadn't done, whilst the real betrayal had been happening underneath her nose. Unable to contain her emotions, Ginika pulled away from her cousin and rushed to find him. He was standing across the reception hall, chatting casually with some guests, completely unaware of what she had just learned. Fury and heartbreak boiled inside of her as she marched up to him. "Did you ever want this wedding to happen?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. He looked at her, startled by the sudden confrontation. "What are you talking about?" he asked, trying to remain calm, but the guilt was written all over his face. "Tell me the truth." Ginika's voice rose, catching the attention of nearby guests. "Did you sabotage our wedding because you didn't want to marry me?" For a moment, he hesitated, as if deciding whether to lie or come clean, but the weight of the situation bore down on him, and he finally sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I wasn't sure if I was ready, and yes, I've been seeing someone else." The admission hit Ginika like a punch to the gut. She felt the room closing on her legs weak beneath her as the truth came crashing down on her. All this time, she had been blaming Munachi, her best friend, who had stood by her through everything, when the person who had truly betrayed her was the man she was supposed to marry. Tears poured down her face, and without another word, she turned and fled the room, unable to bear the weight of her shattered heart. As she ran outside, her mind replayed everything that had happened. Her wedding day had turned into a nightmare, not because of any superstition, but because of the man she thought that she loved. And worst of all, she had let fear and doubt drive a wedge between Munachi and herself, the one person who had always been there for her from the very beginning. As the cold breeze hit her face, Ginika knew one thing for sure: she couldn't go through with the wedding. The man she had planned to spend her life with had broken her trust in the worst way possible. But beyond the heartbreak, she realized something even more important. She needed to make things right with Munachi. She had let superstition and doubt cloud her judgment, and in doing so, she had hurt the one person who had always loved her unconditionally. With tears still in her eyes, Ginika reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed Munachi's number. The phone rang for what felt like an eternity before Munachi finally picked up. "Munachi," Ginika's voice broke as she spoke. "I was wrong about everything. I should have trusted you. Please, can we talk?" There was a pause on the other end before Munachi's soft voice replied, "I'll be right there." As Ginika stood outside, her heart pounding, she waited anxiously for Munachi to arrive. The chaos of the wedding continued inside the hall, but she couldn't bring herself to re-enter. She felt lost, as if her entire life had crumbled in just a few moments. All the plans, the love, the future she thought she had with her husband was now an illusion. Soon, Munachi arrived, dressed simply but elegantly. She stepped out of her car and hurried over to Ginika. There was tension between them, a sadness in Munachi's eyes that reflected the hurt Ginika had caused to her. But Munachi, ever the friend, still came when Ginika needed her the most. "Ginika," Munachi said softly, standing a few steps away, unsure of what to expect. Ginika looked at her, the tears spilling down her cheeks. "Munachi, I've been such a fool. I let fear and superstition ruin everything between us. I hurt you, and I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked as she spoke, her emotions overwhelming her. Munachi's expression softened as she stepped closer to Ginika. "You believed what people told you," she said gently. "I understand, but it doesn't make it hurt any less. We've been through so much together. Ginika, I never thought something like this would come between us." Ginika's heart ached even more. "I know, and I've regretted it every day since I pushed you away. I let my fear of bad luck, of losing what I thought was perfect, drive me to hurt the one person who has always been there for me. But now, everything has fallen apart." Munachi's brow crumbled in concern. "What happened?" Ginika took a deep, shaky breath. "It's not you, Munachi. It was never you. My fiancé. He's been seeing someone else. He's been sabotaging the wedding, hoping I would call it off before he had to tell me the truth." The weight of her words hung in the air, and Munachi's face fell with shock and sympathy. "Oh, Ginika, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." Ginika's tears flowed freely now. "I was so blinded by fear and superstition that I didn't see what was right in front of me. I blamed you, the one person who has always had my back, when all along it was him. I was wrong, Munachi, and I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you in my life. I can't do this without you." Munachi hesitated for a moment, her own emotion battling within her. The pain Ginika had caused wasn't something that could be easily forgotten, but seeing her friend so broken, so lost, she couldn't help but feel compassion. Finally, she stepped forward and pulled Ginika into a tight embrace. "I'm here," Munachi whispered. "I've always been here." Ginika sobbed into her shoulder, releasing all the fear, anger, and regret that had built up over the past weeks. The weight of it all seemed to lift slightly as she clung to her best friend, knowing that this bond, this friendship, was stronger than anything in the world. "I don't know what to do," Ginika admitted. Once her tears had subsided, "The wedding is supposed to happen today, but I can't marry him, Munachi. I can't." Munachi pulled back, looking Ginika in the eyes. "Then don't. You deserve someone who loves and respects you completely, without any doubt. If he isn't that person, you owe it to yourself to walk away." Ginika nodded, though the thought of calling off the wedding terrified her. The guests were already gathered, the ceremony moments away, but she knew deep down that Munachi was right. Marrying him after everything would be a mistake. Taking a deep breath, Ginika wiped her tears and squared her shoulders. "I have to tell them," she said quietly. "I have to tell everyone that the wedding is off." Munachi nodded in support. "I'll be with you the whole time." With Munachi by her side, Ginika walked back into the venue. The sight of guests sitting and waiting for the ceremony to start made her stomach churn with anxiety. Her husband-to-be stood near the altar, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. Ginika took a deep breath, feeling Munachi's reassuring presence. She walked up to where her family was seated, her heart pounding in her chest. Her aunt, the one who had started all this chaos with her superstitions, sat in the first row, chatting excitedly when she saw Ginika approaching. Her smile faded, sensing that something was wrong. "Hello everyone," Ginika announced, her voice wavering but strong enough to be heard. The chatter in the room died down as all eyes turned to her. "I can't go through with this wedding," she continued, her hands trembling slightly. "I've learned things that I can't ignore, and it wouldn't be right to marry someone who doesn't truly love me." There were whispers from the crowd, and her fiancé's face twisted in shock and embarrassment. He tried to step forward to say something, but Ginika held up her hand, stopping him. "I deserve better," she said firmly. "I deserve honesty and loyalty, and I won't settle for anything less. I'm calling off the wedding." With that, she turned and walked away, her heart racing, but a sense of relief overtaking her. The whispers and murmurs from the crowd faded into the background as she left the room, Munachi following closely behind. Once outside, Ginika took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. It wasn't easy, but she knew she had made the right decision. And more importantly, she knew that no matter what, she had Munachi by her side. Munachi smiled softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Ginika. You stood up for yourself." Ginika smiled back through her tears, grateful beyond words, as she thanked Munachi for being there for her, despite all she did to her. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said as they embraced again. This time, it felt like the healing had truly begun. They had weathered the storm, and though the wedding didn't happen, Ginika knew that she had gained something far more valuable: her self-worth and the unbreakable bond of friendship that would carry her through whatever was coming next. The lesson to be learned from this story is that superstitions can cloud one's judgment and lead to poor decisions. Ginika allowed her own superstitious beliefs to drive a wedge between Munachi and herself. It is therefore advisable not to allow fear and doubt to rule one's life, as God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Last but not least, the story demonstrates how external voices can lead us away from our true values and beliefs. So, we should be cautious of who we allow to influence our thoughts and actions, and learn to confront our fears with faith rather than succumbing to doubt. I hope you enjoyed the story.